This is day one of the GTI Travel World War II D-Day Landing Beaches tour, and the first stop on this sunny Sunday morning is the Ranville War Cemetery in Ranville, which was the first village in France to be liberated from the Nazis on June the 6th, 1944. In fact, this is the scene of the first casualty of the D-Day landings. Lieutenant Dennis Brotheridge was killed in this area a couple of hours after he landed by parachute, and he is buried in the adjacent civil cemetery. This particular cemetery was well, it used to be a pasture and was donated by a local farmer, and was set up after the war when they brought in all the dead bodies from various parts of Normandy. Now I'll let you hear Peter, our guide, have a chat and tell you what's going on.
But still, when I'm under stress, I still dream about my time in the Marines, where I've just got to put the kit together. So you won't believe how complicated fastening your kit together, making sure it's comfy, carrying all your equipment, making sure you've got everything that you need. And when I'm under stress, I'm struggling to kind of, in my dreams, fasten all my kit together and get it ready in a very limited time. And so it just shows you how it's kind of put into your thought process. So a paratrooper, even worse, going into combat, he'd be thinking, where the hell is everything? There's some brilliant footage of a group of Lancashire Fusiliers in the First World War about to go over the top. And you can see they're doing the same. They're kind of checking their buttons, they're making sure the bayonet's fastened on properly. It's a soldier's thing. You know, is everything where it should be in his pockets? I've trained and trained and trained. I know where everything is going to be, but I just need to make sure it's there before I do whatever it is I'm going to do. So yeah, it's well worth thinking about. So back to the cemetery itself. This cemetery is a continuation of the Great War. So we just need to have a kind of a quick a revamp for those that have done the First World War of First World War cemeteries. So 1917, there's a realisation that we need to start formalising what's going to happen after the war. And so we get the grave registration units formed. Eventually they will become the Imperial War Graves, which will become the Commonwealth War Graves. There are three types of cemeteries. It's as simple as that. There are battlefield cemeteries, there are medical cemeteries, and then there are concentration cemeteries. But all three can be in one location. So you can have a battlefield that then becomes a medical, that then at the end of the war becomes a concentration. And concentration, that word has connotations nowadays, but what it means is basically just gathering in the dead and concentrating them in one location. So the Second World War cemeteries in Normandy certainly are all concentration cemeteries. So in other words, there was nothing here. This is just a paddock beside a field beside the church the land is going to be given by the French in perpetuity. What that means is this land is forever for use for burying our dead, but it's actually not our land. It's still French. It's French land. Interestingly, when we go to the American cemetery tomorrow, then that is not the same. The American cemetery is, when you step into American cemetery, you're stepping onto American territory. They wouldn't accept that. They said, no, it's got to be our land. We've got to buy it. Whereas this is kind of loaned to us for forever, for the burial of our dead. So this is a concentration cemetery. Just back to the type of cemeteries, a battlefield cemetery, just as a matter of interest, has to have one thing to be a battlefield cemetery, and that is success. Of course, we cannot bury our dead properly if we're not having a successful action. We cannot create a cemetery if we don't win the battle or win the war. So even this means that we've won the war, because we can create this and this formal layout. You know, this is designed. This cemetery is not just going to let's put a cemetery in here and just bury everybody. As you can see, there is a design element about this. Some of the great architects of the Commonwealth at the time will create these both First and Second World War. So some of the rules that they bring in are created during the First World War, at the end of the First World War. So one of them is, let's officially name everything. Everything's got to have a name. So this is the Cross of Sacrifice. It's a double whammy Christian imagery, because it's a Christian cross with a two-handed crusader sword on it. I just need to check something. I never remember. Now this is a single-sided one, which is quite interesting. Sometimes they have a sword on both sides, but this one has only got the sword on one side. Sometimes they're double-sided. The stone that you see down there is called the Stone of Remembrance. So you'll see there's like a stone of, and this is Jurassic limestone from Portland in Dorset. It's a fossil stone. You see fossils in it sometimes. So that's what looks like a tomb. It's not a tomb. It is like an altar. That's what it's supposed to be, like an altar. and on it their name liveth forevermore. Are trying to do here from this position. So here we're looking down onto to Saw Beach. For those of you that can see this, can have a look in a minute. So Colville Montgomery is here. I don't use maps and things very often. I prefer to use my voice, but it's just handy to get an idea. So Colville Montgomery is here. So we're about here in reality, up here. So that landscape there. This is Oostrum on the corner, which is behind those trees. Now those trees kind of give you an idea of how it's changed, because the Germans weren't stupid. When they built these kind of positions, they cleared everything. Remember, this is 1942 when they're planning all of this. We're not going to come here till 44, so it means they had lots of time. Let's clear all the trees, make sure we have a really good view. So right the way from Oostrum, which is over there, most of Saw Beach would have been visible here, and this is showing you how it's broken down into the different sections. So it's not just called Saw Beach; it was broken down into you can see quite clearly Peter, Queen, Roger, and then different colours within each section, so people knew exactly where they were going to land. So what is this controlling? Well, it's controlling batteries, and one of the battery positions is still buried. You know, I talked about things being buried still. So can you see there's, how can I say where it is? So there's a single farm building with a grey roof on it, yeah. And then there's a bump in between, and then there's some more farm buildings with green doors and things on them. Well, that bump in between, that's the battery position. It's still buried under air. So that's concrete, and so guns in concrete shelters. They buried it after the war. This was all buried as well. So this was completely buried. This had gone, and it's a Suffolk regiment knew where they'd fought and start digging it out and clearing it out. And so now when it's open, you can go inside all of these. So and there's underground tunnels linking it to the next one over there. That's a Tobruk. If anybody has ever wondered what a Tobruk is, that's a Tobruk behind you. It's a German position for firing a mortar from. Because remember, this is not got, and there's no guns here. The defence, the mortars and positions here are for defending this from infantry attack. But there's no guns here. This is where they are controlling 3 batteries from here. So where are those batteries firing to? Well, effectively down onto the beaches. But they are capable of almost firing to the horizon. But here, these guns were more suitable for firing down onto the beaches. Remember, no real defence in depth, apart from just these odd positions where they're set back a little bit, and you can see quite easily why it's set back, because their fire is anything. Basically, if you're landing here, then you've got to get up to these guns. So it's going to be a tough old place to get to. Now, the story about this one, the Suffolk Regiment, it took them most of the day to take this position. And the story is, now I don't think this is necessarily true, I think it's just an oversimplification, but they say the slowing down of our advance off this beach, because it's the guys here are tasked to get to Caen. And they say that slowing them down gave the Germans an opportunity to strengthen the defences around Caen, to move in their reserves, and so Caen will not fall on the first day of the landings, and hence will not fall for months and months later on. It takes months before we actually take Caen. What's the matter with that bunker? Yeah, so literally it is just one actually. A bomb's gone in the back and it's detonated its ammunition. So that's the barrel, that's part of the barrel there, just behind you there. Another bit of the barrel over there. So this one, the actual bomb's got it. But you have to say, for the bulk of these defences, when you're up there trying to drop a bomb on something that's as small as one of these, it's quite difficult. And unless you saturate bomb, because that's one of the things you do, is you saturate bomb so something eventually is going to hit it. But you can't do that because this starts in the morning almost of the attack. Because if we spent a lot of time trying to knock these out, then the Germans will be going, we know where they're going to land. So this is done literally that morning by a combination of aircraft trying to bomb them, and then the capital ships out there with the big guns trying to hit them with shells. Too difficult in a limited time. At least they didn't have the problem here, knowing that there's people trying to attack these, so they've got their own people to worry about. There's nobody trying to attack these. You've got cliffs there, sheer cliffs, so nobody's actually physically trying to get up here. But these 4 guns are going to do massive, well, 3 guns, because this one is taken out, are going to do massive damage to the landing fleets, because, believe it or not, from here they're firing this way, all the way across Gold Beach, right the way to the Mulberry Harbour, and firing that way, they're going right the way over Omaha, all the way to Pont de Hoc. So they can see all that, and they can fire beyond the horizon. So these things are capable of firing beyond the horizon. So basically, if a ship is in there and they can engage it, they will. The only thing they have a slight problem with is flight time from the shells here to a ship near out there. It's quite a long time in the flight of shells kind of thing, and also the information being got there. So they're being given predictive positions. So it's predictive positions, predictive locations for it. So that's why ships zigzag. So you can't predict exactly where they're going to be. So the ships coming ashore here are zigzagging and trying to trick the Germans into not knowing where they're going to be, because they're a predictive fire. So where has that been organised? It's been organised from a bunker, which we can't see, in the cliffs, and that's the one we're going to look at as we walk around. So these are big guns capable of firing at anything that you can see out here, and they will certainly cause a problem. So, any questions before we move on to one that's
15 or 20 kilometres that they can. Is that the range?
It must be further than that. So,
Really?
so it's yeah, well, it'll be further than that. I'll just give you an idea. So, by the end of the First World War, we were firing guns that could travel 80 miles. So, we being the Germans, were firing guns that were firing over 80 miles. That's the Paris guns. They were firing on Paris. So they're railway guns. So it gives you an idea. And those are naval guns that were converted onto railway carriages, and they're able to hit Paris from 80 miles away.
Were they accurate?
No, they were hitting Paris.
Oh, okay, okay.
But that made them a terror weapon.
Yeah.
So that meant you didn't know where in Paris the next shell was coming. No, so yeah, they were not accurate. Whereas these have to be accurate for a ship. They've got to be accurate.
The bunker out there, how were they communicating back here?
Telephone line.
Were they getting damaged?
No, because there's not that kind of heavy bombardment. And even if there were, the Germans, remember, we've got so much time here. Telephone cables can be armoured and really deep. No, so it's not like they're kind of near the surface. So it's not like the First World War problems, because communication in the First World War by telephone line is cut all the time. Here, they haven't got that kind of intensity, and B, and actually, if it had been cut, it wouldn't take long for a man to gallop across here with a new one and fit a new one up. Yeah. Any more questions?